What advice would I give to someone searching for their first job? If you get an in-person interview, that is your biggest chance to not get the job. If you get an in-person interview, which is rare, they have read all of your paperwork, and they have seen that in theory, you are able to do the job. When someone meets you for an in-person interview, they are seeing if they want to work with you. That's what they're doing. They're not seeing, hey, I'm going to test this guy. They're not saying, hey, I'm going to, work out if he's able to doing it. They're simply saying, do we vibe? That's what it is. Do we vibe? Be friendly, be kind, be decent, be on time, be punctual, be dressed nicely. It's a vibe check. That's what it is. Straight up vibe check. And Venera says, as an autistic person, it's a pain to go to numerous in-person interviews and normally fail miserably. If you get an in-person interview, the person is just saying, hey, I want to meet this person and see if I want to work with them. That's pretty much all it is at that point. What do I do to stay motivated when things are going bad for you? You don't rely on motivation. Motivation is fickle. Motivation sucks. Motivation is a fair weather friend. Motivation turns up when you don't need it and goes away when you do. Discipline stays around even when it sucks. Relying on motivation means that you only do the thing when you feel like doing the thing. If you only do the thing when you feel like doing the thing, you're not doing anything impressive. You're just being like, yeah, I really want to do this right now, therefore I'm going to do it. The thing that divides those that generally find the level of success and generally don't is people that find a level of success turn up and do the thing when they don't want to do it. Forget motivation. If you feel motivated to do something, great, that's a bonus. Motivation is a bonus. It is not the baseline. Motivation can help. Motivation can push you to do stuff. You can be motivated to do something. The trick is you need to be able to do something even when you aren't. If you can do that, then you are super bloody powerful. It is very important to be able to turn up and say, I don't want to do this, and I'm going to do it. If you don't do something unless you want to do it, you are going to find yourself limited by factors both within and without your control. Sometimes people have said to me, oh, but the way my brain works, I just can't start unless I want to do it. I just can't start. I'm like, okay, in that case, you have to understand that you're playing with a massive disadvantage against people that can. It sucks. There is no way to make it suck less. You just turn up and do the thing, even if it sucks. You're like, oh, well, my brain needs dopamine. Okay, cool. Someone else's does not. It is horrible to say, but I think a fact that some people need to hear is that this is not fair. This is not a fair kind of design. It's not a fair build. It's not a fair comparison. You are not on a level playing field with anyone else. You are competing against people who are able to turn up and do the thing when they don't want to. Did you tune into a David Goggins stream? No. Because I'm trying to tell you that it's not about pushing yourself much further than you need to. It's about understanding that if you can turn up and do something when you don't want to, that is the single biggest strength you can give yourself. Motivation is fickle. It cannot be relied on. You do not want to be relying on being motivated to do something. I don't brush my teeth because I'm motivated to. I do it because I know it's a thing I need to do. I don't wake up and, brush my hair and put on clean clothes because I'm motivated to do that. I do it because that's just a thing that I know I need to do. It's the discipline that keeps you doing that. I don't have bottles of water all around my room because I'm motivated to do that. I do that because I know that if I don't do that, I won't drink water throughout the day, and it's an important thing to do. So I set my life up in a way that's easy to do the thing that I want to do. But of course, it very much does suck that turning up to do the jobs that you don't want to do is kind of essential and needed. I'm not going to be out here saying, oh, real life is so easy and all that jazz. It's not. It sucks. And there is that unfortunate reality that you spend so much energy and so much effort and so much time at your job that by the time you get home, you have no energy and effort left to do anything for yourself. Which is why I would posit this. How many people have ever met someone who defines themselves by their job? Maybe they haven't got much going on in the rest of their life, but they work really, really hard because their self-worth, their importance, their position, their internal validation comes from their job. How many people do that? I would say I've met a lot of people that do this. Have you ever met someone that works really, really hard at their job, puts in loads of energy, loads of effort? Maybe you've even been this person. A huge amount of energy and effort into your job, and then you get home and you realize you've got no time left for yourself. You've got no energy for you. But that's okay because you put all the energy into your job. Do you know what your job would do if you left? They would replace you immediately. Unless you are one of the most skilled individuals in the world, you will be replaced. It doesn't matter how hard you worked. The reward for hard work is more work. So I have known people who put in huge amounts of effort into their job. And then they get home, and then they don't do anything for themselves. And then they realize that, hang on, the amount of effort that I put into my job may have gave me internal validation, but it's not giving me anything else beyond that. It's a real shame. All your energy, all your time, all your focus is going to building up somebody else's life. If you work really hard at your job, congratulations, your boss gets a bigger pay rise this year. Which is why my advice would be for this, and it's going to sound silly, do what you are contracted to do. Work your contracted hours to a fair level of work. And if you turn up to work and you get annoyed that you are working harder than somebody else, ask yourself, why? Why? It used to annoy me. I used to work really hard in the warehouse. I used to move so many boxes around. You know, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to turn up, I'm going to do my best. Move all the boxes around, yeah! And I saw some other people not moving as many boxes as me, getting paid as much. And I'm like, oh man, that so annoys me. You're being lazy. You're being lazy. And then I realized they weren't being lazy, they were being smart. They were putting as much effort into their job as the job required, and the effort they had at the end of the day was going onto their actual life, which was something that I was sorely missing at the time. Now that is something that I should have realized many, many, many years ago. Work your contracted hours. Do your job. Once you go home, you want as much energy as possible to work on yourself, your own hobbies. You don't want to get home from work and have no energy for yourself, because putting more energy into your job does not result in a massive pay rise. It doesn't result in a huge change in lifestyle. The problem is those lazy people can indirectly make your job harder. Kendrick, in that case, you need to be as lazy as possible as well. The true skill in working is to be as lazy as you can possibly be without getting fired. As lazy as you can be. And if you hear that and think that sounds wrong, ask yourself why. Why does it sound wrong? Does it annoy you that you are not producing shareholder value as much as you should be? It's 1,000% wrong. Zach, why? You should be as lazy as you can possibly be without being fired. I mean, Zach, I'm willing to have a conversation. Why do you think it's wrong? When you, the owner of the company... Yeah. Zach, do you own the company? Let me kind of make it a bit clearer to you, Zach. When I say you can be as lazy as you can be, I'm not saying be lazy. I'm saying be as lazy as you can be. If I own the company, and I know that hard work is going to be rewarded with more money, if I know that hard work is going to be rewarded with tangible benefits, then I keep working. Then I keep going. Then I keep producing stuff. Then I keep trying to add value. But if I own the company and I suddenly realize that actually more work here is not producing value, then I will stop. If you own the company, then the skill becomes delegation. Then the skill becomes about sustainable growth. People hear me say be as lazy as you can, and what they think I mean is don't do any work. That's not true. I said be as lazy as you can. If you turn up to work and you realize that you need to work really bloody hard that day, do it. If you turn up to work and you realize that really bloody hard work is not going to give you or the company or the team any advantage, done. What I've often found is people who struggle with the idea of being as lazy as you can tie their self-worth to how hard they work. Work as hard as you're being paid to work. Because if you work harder than that, you are being exploited. Act your wage, as they say. I've straight up said to people before, I'm not doing that because I'm not paid to do that. Here's an interesting case. Working at NGOs that provide charity care, so you don't get more rewarded for work, but it will help more people. Guzen, that's fine. Be as lazy as you can be. If your moral compass says that you can't be lazier than that because you know that hard work is going to actually affect and improve people's lives, great, do that. If that's what you want to do, go for it. Work is life. People that are lazy don't live as long. I think that's incorrect. You know what? Even if that was true, would you rather live 80 years working in the coal mines or 60 years living in the Mediterranean? Because I think I would just rather live. If I had a choice between living longer and most of my life being spent working, or living a shorter life and most of my life being spent relaxing and enjoying life, I think I'm going to go with the shorter but, you know, more pleasurable life in general. That's a decision a lot of people do get to make. Zach, do you genuinely believe that work gives a purpose to your life? I think work allows me to facilitate the rest of my life. There's no reward for burning out, guys. No reward for burning out. Having purpose can help. That's true. Having purpose can absolutely help. You got to keep your mind busy. You got to keep your body busy. But a job means that you are putting in time and effort and work in order to create more value for somebody else than they are paying you. Otherwise, the job wouldn't work. If someone pays you £20 an hour to do something, you can guarantee that they are benefiting more than £20 an hour from the thing you are doing. Because if they weren't, they would pay you less. Your job should pay you enough money and give you enough free time and leave you with enough energy that you can do the things that you actually want to do in life. If what you want to do in life is more of your job, that's fine. I'm not going to be there to tell you that you can't do that. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for wanting to do that. I personally don't want that. But if what you want to do is turn up to your work and work even harder because you get some internal validation from it, that's your choice. The great thing is we have the ability to make those choices. Personally, I think that your job should be what facilitates you being able to do the rest of your life, not your life itself. But that's just my choice. You can choose differently. Do I think AI is a big threat to working people? Do I think leaders of big companies have a moral compass? I think that you can absolutely have a moral compass while leading a company. Unfortunately, you will get to a point where in order to make more money, you have to stray from it. Zach chimes in with no way AI is dumb. It doesn't matter whether it's smart or dumb. It matters what effect it's going to have on people. And the effect is going to be companies are going to look at a way to use it to increase profits. That's what it's going to be. Companies are going to look at something and having a moral compass does not always make line go up. Now, it can do. You can have a company that literally prides itself on effectively, being moral. You can have a company that says, hey, if you support us, you're supporting this and this and this and this and this, and it's all working together. That can be actually quite a good business model. The problem is that the money gained from being moral is simply not as much as the money gained from being immoral. That's just kind of a numerical fact. It sucks, but it's there. Consider this. If you build your product based on being moral, then you will gain money from people who value that moral stance. As soon as you lose that moral stance, you will lose that money. If you build your product on providing a product that people want and people need and people are going to pay for, regardless of the moral stance, then people are going to buy it. And they're not going to stop buying it just because you are immoral with that. The vast majority of consumers do not look anything below surface level when they purchase something. The vast majority of people simply do not care. Yeah, the vast majority of people don't care. So we're talking about businesses having morals. If you build your business based on the idea that you are moral, consider this as a risk as well. This is an extremely risky stance to take. As soon as you do something that your customer base disagrees with, do you think they'll forgive you? Do you think they'll give you a chance? No. You know what they'll do? They'll say you're exactly the same as everyone else and they'll move on to the next company that promises to be moral. That's what will happen. If you build your customer base based on people that need your product, they won't care whether you're moral or immoral at all. Most people are upset with how the company Nestle work. Are people going to stop buying Nestle products? Probably not. Are people going to stop buying them to a degree that Nestle notice? Definitely not. You're here from the spoken YouTube videos and catching another one of your interesting discussions. Oh, thank you very much. We're talking about building businesses based on moral stances as opposed to building businesses based on fulfilling a need. What does Nestle even do? Everything. Mostly chocolate, lots of water, huge amounts of stuff. There is an absolutely massive amount of stuff that they create. They are involved in everything. Unilever is also a pretty massive company. Are there companies you boycott or use over others due to their morals? There are certain companies that I am aware of what I consider to be immoral business practices. The problem is, and this is going to sound horrible, how much free time does everyone actually have to research what every company is doing before they make a purchase? Sometimes you have a problem and you need to find a solution. And the solution is purchasing a product or using a company. And some people say to me, you've got to research everything that company does before you give them any money. At some point, the reason you're using the company is that they solve a problem. That's it. Now, research is becoming easier and faster, but people are also expecting you to do it for everything you get involved with, which I think is honestly a little bit, to a degree, it's quite sanctimonious. Because people are saying, read the reviews. Are you going to read the reviews for every single thing you buy in the supermarket and work out what company owns every single thing? Reddit has the answers. Sol, if you go shopping and you do a weekly shop and you're a parent and you've got 2 kids, are you going to read every single company on every single product and work out whether you morally agree with the stance of every single thing? And if you do that, fine. That's up to you. Are you going to judge people that don't do that? That's the question. Do you judge people that don't do that? Ulysses just says, you just buy what's cheapest. You know what? Admire the honesty, man. Straight up admire the honesty. I think that to a degree, having the ability to pick and choose something that is more expensive based on your moral stance is actually a very privileged position to be in. People who are able, choice is a privilege. People who are able to say, I am going to buy the more expensive thing because it aligns with my moral values, is a very privileged position to be in. If you don't have that privilege and you purchase the thing that is cheap enough to afford, but is connected to moral situations that you disagree with, that sucks. That's just kind of life. Soulspeak, that's moral values. If your choice is feel self-righteous and go hungry, or eat and feel that you are supporting a company that you don't 100% agree with, most people are going to choose to eat. And I think that assuming that they aren't, or assuming that you would rather personally go hungry as opposed to feeding yourself, unless you've been in that situation, I don't think it's worth making a judgment on. Mac of War says the answer is to go hungry. Unless you've had that choice, I don't think it's a choice you can easily make. If you were extremely hungry and somebody offered you a sandwich and you took the sandwich and looked at it and realized that it was made by a company who engage in business practices you disagree with, and you just throw that kind of sandwich away, that's your moral choice to make, but I don't think people are going to do that. Now, it is indeed, Josh, you make a good point. That is called a hunger strike. The idea is it's a hunger strike, but I think the difference is a hunger strike is normally something that you do when you have a public perception of your strike. A hunger strike is normally it's a method of protest which is done to achieve a certain goal. If you are voluntarily choosing to go hungry because you want to draw attention to a certain, ideological fault or a certain problem or a certain issue, understandable. But I don't think cities are full of homeless people going on hunger strike. I think they're full of people who are hungry. And I think if you offer someone who is hungry food and they say, I'm not going to eat this because I'm on a hunger strike, but absolutely nobody knows what they're striking for, what they're trying to raise awareness of, what they're trying to change, that's not a hunger strike. That's just being hungry. So what started this convo? I can never remember where we get to combinations from, to be honest. Boycotting something involves making public noise in order to push back on that thing. You know what? One of my most extreme views, I'll discuss it if you guys want to discuss it, because it's coming from a place, I think, of reality. Not ideology, but reality. I can discuss this. It's a complicated topic, but when you understand it, you will understand kind of, honestly, what everything is created up of. You guys want to have a discussion? A serious discussion with this? It's a very Black Rock Depths discussion. We can do it. Okay. The reason we have rules is to control how society wants to work together. If society all just worked perfectly all the time, we wouldn't necessarily need rules. We would just live and people would just do what we expect them to do. But ultimately, the ultimate pinnacle of power comes down to people are like, oh, this is going to be like a silly pineapple on pizza thing. No, serious. The ultimate hierarchy of power comes down to who has the monopoly on the ability to commit violence. That's what it ultimately comes down to. Now, when I say violence, I don't always mean physical fighting or aggression. Violence is, to a degree, about the ability to control. You guys going on with this? Okay. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because when someone said boycott, I think a lot of people don't understand that boycotting is engaging in a level of financial violence. Boycotting is saying, I am going to avoid your product because of XYZ reason, and therefore I'm going to reduce your income. That is a level of financial violence. There is emotional violence, there is financial violence, there is psychological violence, there's physical violence. Violence normally just means the ability to apply force to a situation, to a person, to a company, to any kind of organization. That's what it is. Imposing your will on people around you can be considered a level of violence. And I think the police engage in this as well, because the ability to put someone in prison requires the ability to do a physical movement of person to place. The ability to stop someone's income means that you have a level of financial power. You can commit financial violence against them. If a boss ever says to you, this is not in your contract, but if you don't do it, I'm firing you, they are threatening financial violence. That's what they're doing. And if they have the ability to do that, they have the level of power over you. People who say, hey, I'm going to go on a hunger strike unless you change this, that is a level of psychological and, in some levels, business and moral and almost not aesthetic. It's the optical violence. As in, if you don't change this, I am going to hurt myself. Which means other people will see that company not changing it, and they will blame that company for the violence you performed against yourself. You're placing the responsibility for your violence onto them. The arbiter of power is who can do the violence. That's genuinely what it is. Who can do the violence? They are the ones with the power. So when people talk about, this person must do this, you must do this, you must do that, if you are willing to choose the companies that you engage with based on your moral stance of that company, you are saying that you have a level or the ability to commit financial violence against that company which you believe will have relevance. You believe it will actually change stuff. If it can change stuff, fantastic. If it can't change stuff, that's a shame. Now, when people team up together, we have the ability to commit more financial violence against companies. That's why we say boycotts don't work unless everyone does them. Me banning people from the chat is the ability, it's at least on a tiny, minute level, engaging in social violence, because I then have the power to remove that person from a situation that I don't want them in. If I didn't have that power, I would simply be relying on them engaging with it in good faith. But I think when people hear the word violence, they think war. They think, battle. They think punch. They think attack. When actually what it kind of translates to is the ability to impose your will. The ability to impose a level of force, backed up by the ability to physically, financially, mentally, or emotionally manipulate that person into a situation you want them to be in. And if you can't do that, then you don't have that level of power. Do I think people have better options comparing publicly or organizing boycotts to charge corporate behavior? Optimus Crime, great question. Public boycotts work when enough people do them. The problem that we have with the internet is that the internet produces echo chambers, and those echo chambers think that everyone is on their side because they are surrounded by people whom are always on their side. If you have 10 million people who are going to purchase a product, and there is a group of 100,000 people involved in a boycott of that product, Those 100,000 people, if they are in a group of 100,000, will think that everyone is about to boycott the product, because that is a huge amount of people. And then the product releases, the boycott happens, and the product sees basically no reduction in success. And the reason for this is, I guarantee this, not even all those 100,000 actually boycotted it, because people will prioritize what they want over something that hurts them. People want the social, and correct me if you disagree with this, people want the social approval of saying they are going to do the popular thing, but they want the personal they want the personal pleasure of doing the thing anyway. People will say they will do A because it sounds good to say you'll do A. But then when push comes to shove, especially if they know they won't be found out, they will do B. Because they wanted to do B. They just didn't want people to think they were doing B. People love to say, I'm not going to do this, but then they go and do that. Perfect example of me being a hypocrite. A couple of years ago, I said I'm not going to play World of Warcraft. Look where we are now. Because I realized that I just wanted to play the game more than I wanted to keep getting the moral superiority of saying, oh no, I'm not going to play the game. Just going to play it. So when you say do boycotts work, they only work if everyone actually does it. The thing is, I think that people who organize boycotts live within echo chambers, and they assume that more people are boycotting the thing than actually are. Did I say never play, or did I say that I didn't want to play at the time? I'm pretty sure I said both. But when we're talking about, boycotting stuff in general, it's definitely an interesting conversation to have. What you will often notice, and I see this comes down to, we spoke about companies appealing to people's morals earlier. Appealing to someone's morals and saying that you are going to create a product which is morally aligned with people's ideological views will put you as a company in a really interesting position, because loads of people will agree that it's a good idea, and then not loads of people will actually buy it. I have seen this happen all the time. I have seen companies gain the social clout from saying, look at how morally advanced we are. Look at how ideologically, progressive we are. And then, when it comes to people actually putting their money where their mouth is, people don't buy it. And the reason for this is, the people that supported it wanted to be seen supporting it. They didn't want to actually support it. That's the thing. Moral optics does not translate to company income. And trying to make it do so often ends up harming the company far more than they realize. It does feel like there's some animosity toward activists. Make me think how insane people in the media thought the suffragettes were. Absolutely. Because the media do realize on some degree that activism is powerful if enough people do it. The trick is to make sure that not enough people do it. Group action is incredibly powerful. And people in charge and people in power know this. It is difficult to beat a collectively, organized group of 1,000 people. However, it's very easy to beat 1,000 people one at a time. Virtue signalers are the ones who support through a social media post, but that's where the action stops. Yes. And they support it to feel good about themselves. I completely agree. So many people want the social clout of being seen to be good, but they don't want the personal sacrifice of giving up the thing that would actually be good to give up. If anyone disagrees with that, do let me know. Because if you disagree with that, you're a better person than I am. I'm not trying to make you guys feel bad for this. I'm trying to explain how it is. Acting anonymously on the internet is free. So giving support is also free. Yeah, pretty much. Saying that you support something is free. When someone comes around and says, okay, it's time to actually pay that support, why does the truth feel so cynical? I think the truth feels cynical because admitting human nature, I think we tell children the way we would like the world to be. And I think as adults, we then have to accept the way the world is. It is to a degree cynical, but I think it is also about accepting. I'm only partly paying attention due to multitasking, but so far have heard many agreeable definitions. Oh, thank you very much. There will be many things I'm sure I say that you disagree with, but I think it's always very important, and I always remind myself of this, attack the problem, not the person. Critique the system, not the designer. People can disagree with me all the time. I would just say that I'd like to have a civil conversation with someone. Having a civil conversation is great. Attack the system, not the person. Yes, absolutely. Do I think everyone should be unionized? Unionized or unionized? Unionized, I think, would kill everyone. Unions are collective action. If you ever doubt the power of collective action, just look at how many companies will immediately fire everyone at any area as soon as they even hint that they might unionize. Companies will stamp down any breath of unionization because they know how powerful it is. If I had to defeat 1,000 people arguing against me, I would not take on all 1,000 at once. I would take on 1,000 people one at a time. Because we know that divide and conquer works better than anything else. The only thing that gives companies a huge amount of safety is the actual knowledge that very few activist cells are actually good at collective work when it means personal sacrifice. And I'm not saying that all activists are bad at this. I have met people with their hearts in the right place all the time. But have you ever seen an activist group who are phenomenal at looking like they're doing something, and as soon as it comes down to actual any level of personal sacrifice or any level of involvement, suddenly that doesn't happen? That's just what I've discovered. That's why when I say does collective action work, yes. No, because you won't hear about ineffective groups because they're ineffective. I think lots of people like to join groups because they agree with the ideology of the group. But very few of those people are actually willing to make any level of personal sacrifice. Mad as a Maid says, lol, what, 100% wrong? What was wrong? Oh, Ross Scott being wrong. No, Ross Scott's put his money where his mouth is. Ross Scott has... I mean, he's traveled to the places, he's done the speeches, he's put the effort in. He's put a huge amount of personal effort into the Stop Killing Games campaign. He's put a massive amount of personal effort into it. A lot of us that are good at doing things are bad at talking to people, so we need to recruit influencers to help more people. Yeah, that can work too. There is definitely a value in recruitment. The only reason I know about Stop Killing Games is because of you. So is his activism effective because you care about the cause, or is it effective because a rando on the street has heard about it? There is a value to both of those things. What we were talking about now is the power of collective action. And there is a value to all of that stuff. I think people sometimes just overestimate the value of certain individual things. Apes together are indeed strong. It's just difficult to keep things that are built on passion together. This is maybe me explaining my own personal views on this. As someone who's been involved in a couple of activism things over the years, especially more heavily back when I was idealistic at uni, it is very easy to build a group of people based on passionate ideology. It is quite difficult to keep that group of people together after the passion dies. Once the passion becomes replaced with the boring bit, because people love, and if you want to say another version of this, everyone loves drawing and making lovely, colourful lists to plan stuff. Have any of you guys ever put more effort and more time into making a plan than actually following the plan? I know I have. Have any of you ever got your coloured markers out, and you got your lists out, and you got your lovely big bits of paper out, and you make a really good looking plan, but then you just don't follow the plan? Imagine that, but with like a societal organizational structure. That's what it is. Because making the plan is fun. Following the plan sucks. I agree though with what you said earlier with, I don't think human beings are meant for the internet. I don't think human beings are designed to live in tribes as large as the entire world. We have a thing called... what's the number? There is a number of people that we can have meaningful relationships and connections with. It's often referred to as the monkey sphere. There was a French philosophist. It's between 150 and 200 people. It's 150 to 200. It's someone's number. What's it called again? Dunbar, that's the one. Thank you. Dunbar's number. Dunbar's number is the amount of people that you can actually have meaningful connections with. Now, when I say meaningful connections, I don't mean that you don't care about literally anyone else that is within, without of your Dunbar's number. But here's a great example. Dunbar's number is the theory that we have a limited amount of space and time in our lives, and we simply cannot make space or time for everyone we will ever meet to the same degree. And I think that's true. Have any of you ever thrown glass away in the bin? I have. Have any of you ever taken your time to wrap the glass you throw away in the bin in tape or paper or something that will prevent any kind of bin man or rubbish worker in the future cutting themselves on it? Now, I do that. I will never meet the person that works at the recycling center. Unlikely. But I will make sure that I engage in a very, very, very small act that makes their life slightly easier. That person does not exist within my Dunbar's number. That person does not exist within my monkey sphere. But I will engage in behavior that makes their life slightly easier. Are they within my Dunbar's number? No, I don't care about them. But I will do something very small that makes their life very slightly easier. We have specific... Okay, guys, this is not about how do you recycle stuff. This is about, do you engage in behavior that impacts people beyond your Dunbar's number? Do you have as close a relationship to your postman as you do to your friends? Despite the fact that there may be times in your life when you actually see your postman more than your friends. That's crazy. That's weird to think about that. It's so strange that you can actually be around people more frequently, and yet you do not consider them part of your world. You will just be around them more. So what I'm trying to get at here is I'm not trying to make people feel bad. I'm trying to explain a concept. The concept is there are a limited amount of people that you can have actual meaningful relationships with. And I think that the internet has created a society so massive, a community bigger than any community that humans could naturally create, and we just aren't very good at dealing with it. Consider this. I'm not a technological Luddite. I don't want to take technology away. I want to understand its impact on the human condition. Without the internet, human communities and societies form into sustainable sizes. Now, when we have cities, when we have phones, when we have factories, those sizes do become unsustainable themselves. Human progression is responsible for the formation of unsustainable sizes of society. Now the entire world is connected together, which is a society size so massive, it would have never been created without technology to allow it. It is terrifyingly massive. And so we now have a situation where an amount of human beings that would simply never, ever have connected together are connecting together. And that's unsustainable in many, many ways. Humans will adapt. They absolutely will adapt. But do you genuinely think that we are in a safe place as far as society goes? I think social media exposed us to a Dunbar's number so massive that we could never possibly have actually met it. I don't think we're adapting fast enough. I think the technology that facilitates these connections is advancing faster than we are. But what do you guys think about this? And I think one of the symbols that we are living in a society that is so massive it is unsustainable emotionally and sociologically is we are exposed to more people via the internet every day than someone 100 years ago would have met in their entire life. You can speak to more people from more countries with more backgrounds and more cultures in one day than someone 100 years ago could have ever realistically actually met. Ever. Which is insane. We're doing it right now. We're having a conversation with more people than would have easily fit into any specific room. And I think one of the scariest things about, and it's all anonymous, which is terrifying. It's cool, but it's also anonymous. But I think one of the hardest things to discuss with this is, and this is where gymflation comes in. Believe it or not, gymflation actually connects to this. When I say gymflation, I mean that the idea of a physical fit body is becoming even more and more and more and more extreme. 100 years ago, in order to see a physically fit person, you would have had to either go to a specific fitness convention or you would have had to find a fitness magazine, or you would have had to join a specific fitness group. You would have probably seen someone as fit as the world's fittest bodybuilder once, maybe twice in your life. Now, you can open social media and see the top 1% of the top 1% in the world immediately, which is, as far as an exposure goes, utterly terrifying. It is insane to think that the exceptional has become the norm. What are we talking about? Q, we're talking about whether the connection of the world globally via the internet, via social media, via, cultural osmosis across all borders and all time zones is actually an overwhelming thing for a human being to deal with. Do you think it's overwhelming to be exposed to everything everywhere all the time? I think it is. I think that human beings were designed to deal with slightly smaller, more intimate, more understandable sizes of either group or situation or battle or problems. And I think that dealing with as many people and as many situations and as many problems as we are dealing with now is remarkably overwhelming. And sometimes getting off the internet is the most important thing to do. To call it doom scrolling is absolutely correct, because it is. There's a level of doom to it, without a doubt. Now, people are arguing in the chat on people's specific interpretations of words. There are arguments going on already, which I think is interesting, because I bet many people actually, if they met in real life, wouldn't argue. But the ability to be anonymous and the ability to put forward your views in a way that is effectively consequence-free, I think changes how people interact. Give a man a mask and he'll show you who he truly is. Human beings will adapt. We do have to. But we are adapting at a pace faster than ever before. Technology is outpacing us. The scariest thing I've seen to come from the internet is grouping of opinions into a bubble that doesn't get challenged. Jin, that's very true. But talking back about the main conversation here, I do think that we are living through a societal change that is honestly mentally overwhelming. How many people, if you've been in this chat for a while, tell me this. How many people have you seen that have been annoyed that I don't care about something as deeply as they do? And how many times do those people care about the same thing? We have had multiple people come into this chat telling me that I need to care about something as deeply as they do. If I don't care about the thing that they care about, they can't comprehend it. They can't understand. Why don't I care about that thing? Josh, please stop the old man rant. No. No, I will not. I'm trying to change negative Twitch culture. And the irony is that I'm actually saying you don't need to care about everything all the time. Because if you did, you would go mad. We are not designed to be able to do that mentally. We're not physically capable of fixing all these problems at once. We simply aren't. And by trying to, we will drive ourselves insane. Josh, why don't you care about anything and why do you hate us? I think it's because I'm just a massive hypocrite. People can come up to me and say, don't you care about this terrible thing? I'm like, I can find it terrible while understanding that my limited kind of mental and physical capacity to engage in stuff is already being taken up by other stuff. It's okay to say the thing that you are talking about has value, but I cannot actively care about it right now. Would you do hardcore WoW if lots of streamers organized and set you up with a mentor who would die with you? No, I wouldn't want to be responsible for somebody else's death. If I ever play hardcore WoW, I'll play it by myself. I'm not saying that I'll never play it. I'm saying that, okay, let me try and clear this up for people who don't quite understand. Hardcore WoW is a version of WoW that punishes mistakes with death and deletion of the character. I am not yet at a point in my understanding of WoW where punishment and deletion is a fair amount of punishment. I would like to be able to make mistakes and not have to delete my character. I would like to be able to make mistakes, learn from them, and continue to progress. You used to be very argumentative, but it wasn't useful and people started hating you. So you stopped being argumentative. I learned that people will show me the same degree of hate by having an opinion different to that, even if it's not argued. People will hate you for not being like them. It's I think life changes when you understand, and I mean truly understand, this very important fact. Some people want to be angry. That's just what they want. Some people want to be angry. And no matter what you do, they will always want to be angry at you. It's miserable. It absolutely is miserable, but that's what they want. They want to be angry. You can say the best thing in the world. There is no combination of words you could say that would make them not angry at you. Because to them, the most rewarding part of the conversation is the anger. So once you're able to step back and be like, that's okay. People will hate you if you're not honest, and then they will hate you if you are honest. Some people engage within interpersonal kind of communication because the best thing they can get from it is anger. Now, hot cross buns, you're spot on. Anger is not necessarily itself inherently bad. But if it's not done at the consent of somebody else, then you are just looking as a way to be angry with that person. A lot of people value and enjoy being angry. Because you know what? To a degree, it can sometimes feel good. You get immediate validation feeling angry. Some people get a level of joy from it. Yeah, and sometimes not being angry means that you are forced to, contend with whatever feelings you do currently have. Self-reflection is difficult. Anger is easy. Also, as a man, we are often taught that showing emotions is wrong, and yet anger is fine. You will discover that there is an entire generation of men who have been told that showing your emotions is weakness, but showing anger is totally okay. If anything, it's manly. This means that there are many men in the world whose only safe emotional outlet is anger. And then you look at these men and you think, they want to show emotion. They want to be able to talk about emotion. They want to be vulnerable. They want to be emotional. And the only emotion that they are allowed is anger. That's the only one. Everything else is mocked. Everything else is attacked and hurt. And so their only emotional outlet, their only release becomes anger. That is terrifying and awful